Frustrating at times, difficult and challenging for many, but for some they can recall anything at any particular time. Here we have the human memory. In today's society, we tend to think our memory is more like a filing cabinet. We experience something or an event takes place, then we generate memory which gets filed away for later use. But the human memory goes way beyond that, making it such a dynamic tool. Let's face it, what would the world be like today without memory? First, memory works by neurons that communicate through synaptic connections, which are structures that pass a signal from neuron to neuron. I'm referring to nerve cells in the brain, if you're not familiar with the term neuron. These neurons talk to each other when certain neurotransmitters that are chemicals, which allow the transmission of these signals whenever they are present. A good example to think of this is, if you're busy and receive one or two emails, you may ignore them. But if you're bombarded with hundreds of emails from the same person saying basically the same thing, all at the same time, you will likely begin to pay attention and start a conversation asking the sender why they keep on sending these. Similarly, neurons only open a line of communication with each other when they receive stimulation from several of the same neurotransmitters. You may be wondering, how does any of this have to do with memory? Well, it's the strength of these connections between neurons that determines how memory is formed. Most people talk about memory as if it were a thing they have, like bad eyes or a good head of hair. But your memory doesn't exist in the way a part of your body exists. It's not a thing you can touch, it's a concept that refers to the process of remembering. In the past, many experts were fond of describing memory as a tiny filing cabinet full of individual memory folders in which information is stored away, like I stated earlier. Others liken memory is far more complex and exclusive than that, and that is located not in one particular place of the brain, but instead a brain-wide process. Do you remember what you had for breakfast this morning? If the image of a big plate of fried eggs and bacon popped in your mind, you didn't dredge it up from some out-of-the-way neural alleyway. Instead, that memory was the result of an incredibly complex constructive power, one that each of us possesses, that reassembled disparate memory impressions from a web-like pattern of cells scattered throughout the brain. Your memory is really made up of a group of systems that each play a different role in creating, storing, and recalling your memory. When the brain processes information normally, all of these different systems work together perfectly to provide cohesive thoughts. What seems to be a single memory is actually a complex construction. If you think of an object, say a pen, your brain retrieves the object's name, its shape, its function, the sound when it scratches across the page. Each part of the memory of what a pen is comes from a different region of the brain. The entire image of a pen is actively reconstructed by the brain from many different regions. Neurologists are only beginning to know and understand how parts are reassembled into a coherent whole. Everything in our brain, the different stages of human memory, function as a sort of filter. They all function as a sort of filter that helps to protect us from the flood of information that we're confronted with on a daily basis. The creation of a memory begins with its perception. The registration of information during perception occurs in the brief sensory stage that usually lasts only a fraction of a second. It's your sensory memory that allows a perception, such as a visual pattern, a sound, or touch, to linger for a brief moment after the stimulation is over. When you want to remember something, you retrieve the information on an unconscious level, bringing it into your conscience as well. When you want to remember something, while most people think that they either have a good or bad memory, in fact, most people are fairly good at remembering some types of things, not so good at remembering others. If you have trouble remembering something, assuming you don't have a physical disease, it's usually not the fault of your entire memory system, but an inefficient component of only one part of the memory system. Let's look at how you remember where you put your glasses in such a case. When you go to bed at night, you must register where you put your glasses. You must pay attention while you set them on your bedside table. You must be aware of where you're putting them, or you won't be able to remember their location the following morning. Next, this information will be retained, ready to be retrieved at a later date. If the system is working properly, when you wake up in the morning, you remember exactly where you left your eyeglasses. If you've forgotten where they are, several things could happen throughout the entire system. If you're riding a bike, the memory of how to operate the bike comes from one set of brain cells. The memory of how to get from here to there, from each end of the block, comes from another. The memory of biking safety rules and that nervous feeling that you get when a car veers dangerously close from still another. Yet you're never aware of these separate mental experiences, nor that they're coming from all different parts of your brain because they all work together so well. In fact, experts tell us there's no firm distinction between how you remember and how you think. This doesn't mean that scientists have exactly figured out how the system works. They still don't fully understand exactly how you remember or what occurs when you recall. The search for how the brain organizes memories and where those memories are acquired and stored has never been an never-ending quest among brain researchers for decades. Still, there is enough information to make some educated guesses. The process of memory begins with encoding, then proceeds to storage, and eventually retrieval. Encoding is the first step in creating memory. It's a biological phenomenon rooted in the senses that begins with perception. Consider, for example, the memory of the first person you ever fell in love with. When you met the person, your visual system likely registered physical features such as the color of their hair or their eyes. Your auditory system may have picked up the sound of their laugh. You probably noticed the scent of their perfume or cologne. You may even have felt the touch of their hand. Each of these separate sensations traveled to the part of your brain called the hippocampus, which integrated these perceptions as they were occurring into one single experience. Your experience of that specific person. Once a memory is created, it is to be stored, no matter how briefly it is. Many experts think there are 3 ways we store memories. First, in the sensory stage, then in short-term memory, and ultimately for some memories in long-term memory, because there is no need for us to maintain memory or to be retained. That's why studying helps people perform better on tests. Unlike sensory and short-term memory, which are limited and decay rapidly, long-term memory can store unlimited amounts of information indefinitely. People tend to more easily store material on subjects that they already know something about, since that information has more meaning to them and can be mentally connected to related information that is already stored in the long-term memory. That's why someone who has an average memory may be able to remember a greater depth of information about one particular subject. Most people think of long-term memory when they think of memory itself, but most experts believe information must first pass through sensory and short-term memory before it can be stored as long-term memory. All in all, it's something many can struggle with. Others can recall at any second the human memory. What helps us keep our dearest memories and what makes our lives, all in all, our very own movie. Here we have the human memory. Thank you.